My daughter is useless. That's what they always said, and I believed them. Until I didn't. When I close my eyes, I can still hear the applause echoing across the school auditorium. Not for me, never for me. It was always for Josh. My older brother, the debate team captain, future lawyer, golden boy in a navy blue blazer. The crowd clapped like he'd just solved world peace. I sat in the corner, sketch pad on my knees, drawing the folds of his suit jacket, the proud curve of Dad's grin as he shook Josh's hand. No one noticed. That was the story of my life. They raised him to shine and raised me to stay quiet. At home, the walls told the same story. Josh's awards lined the mantel, gold and glass trophies reflecting the fireplace glow like sacred artifacts. My drawings, stuck on my bedroom wall where no one ever looked. When I showed Mom the fantasy world I'd spent weeks creating, dragons curling around glass towers, skyships drifting above purple mountains, she glanced at it, then asked if I'd done my homework. You're always in your head, Lena, she sighed. You can't live in a fairy tale. Maybe try something more useful? Useful. That word followed me like a stain I couldn't scrub out. My father used it like a weapon. Josh will be somebody, he'd say after dinner, swirling his whiskey. Lena, well, she's soft, artistic, fragile. At first, I tried harder. I joined the yearbook committee to prove I could apply my creativity. I took extra math classes. I even tried the debate team once. I froze halfway through my rebuttal and nearly cried when I sat down. Josh said I embarrassed him. My parents said nothing at all. I stopped trying after that. By senior year, I had learned to disappear in plain sight. At my high school graduation, Josh gave a speech as class valedictorian. The crowd stood up. I stood too, to applaud him. When it was my turn to cross the stage, I smiled small, took my diploma, and walked back to my seat. No cheers, no camera flashes. Later, I found one. Photo of me, taken by a friend. I was off to the side, half-shadowed, like a guest at my own life. The summer after, Josh got a new car for getting into Stanford Law. I got a tote bag that said, "Follow your dreams." The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. There was a night, I remember it so clearly, I came downstairs with an acceptance letter from an art school in Chicago. I was nervous but proud. I had applied behind their backs, terrified they'd shut it down before I even tried. I held it out to my mom at the kitchen table. She didn't even read it. "Oh, honey," she said, placing her teacup down gently. "That's sweet, but we can't pay for something like that. And besides, you'll change your mind next week." She smiled like she was being kind. But that moment cracked something open inside me. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the letter still in my hand. I felt like I was waiting for someone to say, "You can go. We believe in you." But no one came. No one knocked. And no one ever would. So, I stopped waiting. At 22, I packed a suitcase, rolled up a dozen sketches, and bought a one-way bus ticket. I didn't tell them. I left a note on the fridge with 3 words. I'm moving out. No one called. No one chased me. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. When you've been invisible this long, leaving doesn't feel like running away. It feels like finally being free. The bus dropped me off in a city I'd never been to, with 2 suitcases, $300, and a sketchbook full of dreams no one cared about but me. I rented the cheapest room I could find, barely big enough for a bed and a desk, and got a job waitressing at a 24-hour diner 2 blocks down. The shifts were long. The customers were rude. But for the first time in my life, I breathed air that didn't taste like disappointment. Every night, after scrubbing ketchup off booths and counting coins for tips, I'd walk back, kick off my shoes, and open my laptop. Freelance sites, Craigslist gigs, Reddit design forums, anything. I'd work until 3 a.m., drawing logos, book covers, menus, most of them paid next to nothing. Sometimes they ghosted me. Sometimes they stole my work. But I kept going. I had nothing left to lose. Loneliness came in waves. Sometimes I craved my mother's voice. Then I'd remember how she never really listened. Sometimes I wondered if Josh had noticed I was gone. Then I'd remember the look in his eyes when I froze during debate club, the one that said, "You're not like us. You never will be. I told myself I didn't miss them. And most nights, I believed it. Months passed. Then a year. I landed a gig designing a logo for a tiny independent coffee shop run by a woman named Marcy, who reminded me of who I wanted to become. Confident, unapologetic, kind. She loved my sketch, said it made her place feel real. She posted it online. A local influencer shared it. 2 days later, I had 20 new inquiries in my inbox. I printed that logo and taped it to the wall above my desk. It wasn't an award, but it was proof. I was building something real. One evening, I stood in line at the post office, holding a simple postcard with a photo of my city skyline. On the back, I wrote, "Hope you're well. I'm doing fine." I didn't sign it, just my first name and the return address of my studio. I never heard back. Years rolled on. The rejections slowed, the referrals grew. I hired a part-time assistant, then a second. I painted the walls of my tiny studio myself, deep navy with gold accents and clean white shelves. One morning, a journalist came by for a piece on up-and-coming female entrepreneurs. A month later, there I was, my name and face in a local design magazine. The day it hit the shelves, I bought a copy, walked back to the studio, locked the door behind me, and just stood there. In the front window sat a small brass plaque, Lena, Morgan Creative Studio. I ran my fingers over the etched letters, then looked up at the reflection of myself in the glass. "They'll never know," I whispered, and for the first time, I didn't care. It was a Tuesday. I was in the middle of reviewing mock-ups for a nonprofit campaign when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, some spam call or another last-minute deadline. But then I saw the name, Mom, 8 years. That's how long it had been. No birthdays, no holidays, not even a stray email. I had deleted the number years ago, but I must have still had it backed up somewhere. And there it was now, glowing on the screen like a ghost I thought I'd buried. I froze. I watched. It rang until it stopped. Then it rang again. The second time, I picked up. There was silence on the other end. No sharp voice, no cold disapproval. Just a breath. Then finally she spoke. And her voice, my mother's voice, shook. "Lena," she said. Just my name. No lecture, no apology. Just the sound of someone who hadn't said it in a long, long time. I didn't answer. "Your dad, he's in the hospital," she continued, stumbling through the words. "He collapsed this morning. They said it might be a stroke." Still, I said nothing, and Josh, he's in trouble. There's an investigation. It's all over the news. I don't know what to do." She was rambling now, her voice unraveling, word by word. "We're losing everything. The business, the house. Lena, we're drowning." I closed my eyes. I could almost hear her sitting in our old kitchen, maybe by the window, the same place she once told me not to waste time on my fantasy drawings. Now here she was, sounding small and scared, and for the first time in my life, not in control. "We didn't know who else to call," she whispered. "Please, Lena, we need help." It hit me like cold water. We need help, not Josh, not a lawyer. Me. I looked around my office, the clean white walls, the gallery of framed client logos, my team's desks, empty at the moment, but humming with life during the day. My life, one I had built without them, and now the same people who had made me feel like nothing were calling me, asking me to fix everything. I wanted to scream, or laugh, or hang up. I wanted to say, where was this voice when I needed it? Where was this fear when I stood in front of you with that art school letter? Where were you when I left? But I said none of that. I just held the phone to my ear and listened to the soft, ragged breathing of a woman who had never begged me for anything, until now. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared at the screen, the missed calls, the messages that followed. And for the first time, I wasn't the one needing something. For the first time, they needed me. The front door creaked the same way it always had. Same chipped paint on the frame, same flower-patterned rug that Mom had sworn she'd replaced 10 years ago. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and faded pride. Nothing had changed, except everything. The silence inside was heavy, not peaceful. A kind of stillness that only comes when life has been drained out of a place. I stood there, suitcase in hand, unsure if I felt like an intruder or a returning ghost. Then I saw them. Mom came out of the kitchen first, thinner than I remembered. Her posture was bent, her eyes shadowed with a kind of tired that makeup can't hide. She forced a smile, habitual, strained. Dad followed, slower. There was a cane now. His face had collapsed in around the edges, like a house starting to sink. He looked up at me but didn't speak. "Lena," Mom said, voice trembling. "Thank you for coming." I didn't hug her. She didn't reach for me. Instead, I set my bag down and walked past them into the living room. The mantel still held Josh's trophies, not a single photo of me in sight. The TV was on mute, looping a news segment. Breaking: Morgan Legal under investigation for fraud. I took the remote and turned it off. "We'll start with the financials," I said. "I need full access. Bank accounts, business records, contracts, everything." Mom blinked. You want to see?" "Yes," I cut her off. "If I'm going to fix this, I need the truth, not the version you told your country club friends." Dad cleared his throat. "We were just trying to protect the family." I didn't respond. I opened my laptop and got to work. That afternoon, I made calls. I brought in a crisis PR team I trusted from a previous campaign. I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer I'd worked with years ago. I had copies made of all the statements. I flagged red flags on the spot. I set up an emergency trust to protect what little was left. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't for them. Josh came home halfway through the meeting with the accountant. His tie was loose, his face pale from stress. He tossed his keys on the table and stared at me like I was a disease. "Don't act like you're better than us," he snapped. I looked up, calmly. "I don't have to act," he scoffed, stormed out of the room. By dinner, I had rewritten their press statement, coordinated an anonymous source to take heat off the family name, and arranged for Josh's bail to be processed through a third party. I refused to sit at the dinner table. I ate standing, over the sink, like I used to as a teenager. Mom hovered behind me, unsure whether to speak or disappear. Dad sat in the den, silent. That night, the house was quiet. I lay in my old bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars I had put on the ceiling at 16. Most had fallen off. The rest had lost their shine. I heard a knock at the door. Soft, hesitant. "Come in," I said. Dad shuffled in slowly. He didn't look like the man who once called me a disappointment. He looked like someone who had run, out of certainty. He sat at the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. "I know we weren't." "Good to you," he said. "We thought we were doing what was best, pushing you, expecting more." "You never expected anything from me," I said quietly. "Not really." He nodded. His eyes welled, but he didn't let the tears fall. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "We were wrong. About everything." I looked at him, really looked, and realized, for the first time, he wasn't towering over me anymore. He was just a man who finally saw what his daughter had become. The crisis management plan worked faster than expected. Within 2 weeks, I had neutralized the media fallout, secured legal representation for Josh, and created a strategy that kept the family's remaining assets from being completely gutted. I didn't sleep much. I didn't talk unless I had to. I worked like a surgeon in an operating room. Steady hands, no emotion, clean cuts. People started calling again. Investors, associates, even family friends who'd gone silent. I took the calls. I answered their questions. I made sure no one would see how badly this house had burned from the inside. And then, suddenly, the chaos quieted. One morning, I came downstairs to find my mother in my old room, flipping through paint swatches and holding up curtain fabrics. "I was thinking," she said, holding up a pale blue sample, "we could repaint in something fresh. Make this room feel more like you. You could stay here. Longer. I didn't answer. I looked around at the posters still curled at the corners, the dent in the wall from when I threw a sketchbook in high school. She wanted to reset, the past like it was a matter of redecorating. Josh was in the kitchen, humming as if he hadn't nearly destroyed the family's name. When I passed him, he gave me a lopsided grin and said, "You always did like cleaning up messes, huh?" My father, reading the newspaper at the table, chuckled along. They were all trying, in their own warped ways, to pretend things were normal. Again. But it wasn't normal. I wasn't the girl who begged them to read her application letter. I wasn't the invisible shadow behind Josh's spotlight. "I didn't come back for comfort," I said, setting my coffee mug down with a sharp clink. "I came to clean up the mess you left me out of." The silence after that was thicker than anything I'd ever felt in this house. Mom stopped mid-swatch. Josh left the room. Dad lowered his paper and stared at me, really stared, like he was finally starting to understand. I went upstairs and began packing. No drama, no fight, just folded clothes, zipped bags, unplugged chargers. By nightfall, my suitcase stood by the door again. Mom stood near it, her hand gripping the handle. Her eyes were glassy. "You don't have to go, Lena. You could stay. We could start fresh." I looked at her. "You don't get to say that now." Josh muttered something from behind her. I didn't care enough to ask what. Then my father, his voice hoarse, said it out loud, "Please, stay." They had never asked me to stay before, but I wasn't 17 anymore. I picked up my bag, opened the door, and walked out without looking back. This time, they were the ones left behind. 3 months later, the air in my studio buzzed with energy. The morning sunlight poured through the tall windows, casting gold across a row of desks where 5 young designers tapped away, headphones in, faces lit with quiet purpose. My logo was now etched into the glass door. Lena Morgan Creative Studio. And under it, in smaller letters, mentorship, media, identity. We'd just landed our biggest contract yet, a brand overhaul for a women's health startup. I was scheduled to speak at a creative leadership summit next week, and today I was hosting a portfolio workshop for a group of college seniors who reminded me so much of myself back then, hungry, unsure, dreaming in secret. As I straightened, a stack of handouts by the coffee table, my phone vibrated. Unknown number, no name, just a voicemail icon. I let it go, but something in my chest knew before I even tapped play. My mother's voice came through, small and hesitant. "Hi, Lena. I know you probably won't answer. I wanted to say, we saw the article about your award, your speech. It was beautiful." A pause, a breath. "We're proud of you." That was it. Not long, not elaborate, but more than I'd ever heard in 3 decades. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, thumb hovering over delete. Then I smiled, just slightly. I tucked the phone into my bag and turned toward the front doors, where a small crowd of eager, nervous faces waited, with portfolios in hand and hope in their eyes. As I opened the doors and welcomed them in, I didn't think about the house I left behind. I didn't think about the trophies, or the silence, or the things they never said when I needed to hear them most. I thought about these new voices, the ones just finding themselves. I thought about the girl I used to be, and as they gathered around, waiting for someone to believe in them, I gave them what no one ever gave me. My voice, calm and clear, over the soft sound of shuffling pages and fresh starts. I used to think I needed their approval, but all I really needed was to believe in myself, and that was never useless.